And we're rolling in 3, 2, 1. Today on the show, we are pleased to have John Barlow. John is our Member of Parliament for the Foothills region and the Shadow Minister of Agriculture. He is also the official opposition critic for interprovincial trade. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
John, welcome to the show.
Mark, thank you very much for having me.
I really appreciate you being on here. We were just chatting before the show, and I've got to ask you, why in the heck would you go into politics? It is a crazy, crazy game. Everybody's examining you with a microscope. Why?
You know, a lot of people tell you that there was a specific issue or something that really galvanized them to get into politics. That wasn't how it worked for me. I was a journalist in this community for, almost 20 years. I covered a lot of the issues. I've covered thousands of council meetings and town halls and provincial, federal, and municipal elections. And so I think I knew what the issues were, and I knew who the movers and shakers were. So when this opportunity came, when Ted Menzies, the member of parliament before me, retired, literally my phone just rang off the hook from people. Just, is this something you'd be interested in doing? Would you want to do this? And honestly, initially, I was really hesitant. Going to Ottawa so many days of the year is going to be tough. I've got 3 kids. But Louise, my wife, she said, if you don't do this, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Your community is showing faith and confidence in you. This doesn't happen every day. Do it. And we did. And I would never, she's right, I would have regretted it if I never did it because I love every minute of it.
What do you love about it?
The people I get to work with are incredible. You get to work with...
But they're politicians.
That's very true. That's very true. Sometimes that can be frustrating, and we've certainly seen that from Albertans over the last week or so, how frustrating it can be. But when you're able to solve someone's problem, and I know everybody talks, when they talk about a member of parliament, they think about Ottawa and the House of Commons, which is incredible. But we get the most satisfaction out of resolving people's problems here at home, whether that's an immigration issue, something with the Canada Revenue Agency. Those are the ones that we get the most satisfaction of with here in the riding with my staff and meeting the people throughout the riding. It's 25,000 square kilometers. It's a big area. We have made some friends and some contacts at all levels of government with people who aren't involved in politics at all, but people you get to meet through going to different events.
Got a urban myth question for you. I just got this yesterday, and I'm like, is this actually true? I'm going to ask John tomorrow.
Okay.
I was told yesterday that the Energy East pipeline is in the ground everywhere but the Quebec. It goes up to the border on one side and starts in the border on the other, so it's already there. We just got to get that last stretch, and it's been there for like 20 years. They've been saying no. Is that actually true?
That is actually true. So
oh my God!
Portions of what would become Energy East are already in place.
I don't think most people know that.
No, they don't. And I think, Mark, that's a great point in the fact that I think a lot of Canadians didn't understand what the energy sector was, what it entailed, the benefits that came with it, the price differential. Those things have been around for a long time, or the amount of foreign oil that's imported into Eastern Canada. That's 700,000 barrels a day that comes into Eastern Canada from Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, places that certainly don't have the environmental standards or the human rights record that Canada has. Canadians didn't know that until the last couple of years, and we've started talking about these issues. And that's one of the benefits from this, is Canadians are finally understanding how important Alberta's oil and gas sector is.
Brett Wilson has been quite vocal. Mm-hmm. And he was saying just yesterday that, and you tell me if this is an urban legend, that the real reason, because it's never the reason that is stated. Oh, right. Environmental, we care about the children and the whales. Yeah, right. Wish they did. But what he's saying is it's a longshoreman issue and mafia and that sort of thing. Have you heard anything like that? Is there anything to it?
I would never be one to question Brett, but I think it's more than that. Certainly that could be one part of it. But I think what's unfortunate is you have a very vocal minority of activism that's, infested Canadian politics at every level, municipal, provincial, federal. And those are things that are blocking these projects. And there's no question in my mind that there are some significant foreign funding that's supporting these groups. And you just kind of have to follow the money. Who benefits the most from Canada's energy sector being landlocked? Well, the United States used to be our number one customer for our energy, but now they're our number one competitor. They are able to purchase our energy at a substantial discount, process it, refine it, and sell it back to us at a very hefty profit. So as a result of that, there are schools and hospitals and roads being built every single day in the United States, subsidized by the Canadian tax dollar. Those projects should be built here at home, benefiting Canadians if we were able to access additional markets.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely couldn't agree more. There's just no logic to it. Mm-hmm. If Canada is a family of provinces, it seems that Quebec is the favorite child and that Alberta is the redheaded stepkid. Why is that?
You know, it's funny you asked that question. I just finished reading a book by Mary Janigan, Let the Eastern Bastards Freeze in the Dark. And it was quite a bit different than what I was expecting. It discussed Western alienation that goes back before Confederation. And I think this is a history that has gone on in Canada for a very long time. That being said, I think you look at the past decade with Prime Minister Harper when he was our Prime Minister, there was no discussion about all these little fiefdoms in Canada that provinces were working on their own, even municipalities. You know, the mayor of Montreal was blocking Energy East, a national project. What you've seen now...
How is that even possible, that a mayor can block a national project?
It shouldn't be possible. It shouldn't. This is a national project, a national interest. The federal government has jurisdiction. Same as Trans Mountain. Provincial and municipal governments shouldn't be able to stand up and block these projects. If the federal government is a champion of Canada's industry and Canada's economy and Canada's energy sector, you just make this happen because you have jurisdiction. And that is what's most frustrating with this, is you're seeing this division build because we have a federal government and a prime minister right now who is listening to those vocal activists rather than listening to what's best for Canada.
Being that we definitely feel alienated in the West and taken advantage of, that we've been dumping massive and disproportionate transfer payments since 1957, is it actually possible that the rumblings that have been going on for a long time about Alberta separation or a Western separation, I'm actually starting to feel it. Mm-hmm. That I can feel it in the air, that it's not such a far out thing anymore.
Yeah.
What's your sense?
Yeah, I think that anger and that frustration is certainly like I've never felt it before, and mm-hmm. rightfully so. Albertans have a reason, and people in Saskatchewan are feeling the same way. I was in Regina a few weeks ago. They are just as angry and frustrated, and they have a reason to be. We have a confederation that isn't working right now, but let's look at why it's not working. Like I said, under Prime Minister Harper, this was never discussed. People understood what Alberta contributed. And I think as Albertans, we don't mind helping other parts of Canada, as long as you understand where that is coming from and you support us.
12.
The other way.
We had 12 years of Harper.
Yeah.
I voted for the guy.
Yeah.
Why was the transfer payment system not fixed over that 12 years or addressed? I don't remember any rumblings about it.
Right. I guess two reasons. As A, there was no real rumblings that we're worried about. As I said, Albertans don't mind helping out as long as when Energy East comes up, that Quebec says, yeah, we know we benefit from Alberta's energy sector. We'll support Energy East. Of course, that wasn't on the table during Prime Minister's tenure. And I guess this is something Albertans need to understand too, is that to renew the equalization formula that comes up every 5 years. Prime Minister Trudeau renewed that for another 5 years without telling anybody, which I think was a pretty underhanded move. But you also need to have all of the provinces, 7 out of 10 provinces for 2/3 of the population, agreeing to do that. I don't think we'd be naive to understand that Quebec probably wouldn't support a change in equalization formula. So that would take a lot of work. Not saying we can't do it, but you have to wait till it's up for renewal again to do that.
If we just cut them off, now I'm sure it's not that simple.
Right.
But if we just did, I mean, that's a hell of a bargaining chip. So if we just said no more, we'll talk about it again and renegotiate and figure out a more fair formula when we get back on our feet. What sort of recourse does Ottawa have?
Well, I think if you're saying cut them off from equalization payments,
yes,
it's impossible.
Why?
Because equalization payments isn't that the province of Alberta is giving Quebec a check. It comes through, we're paying federal taxes. You and I are paying our federal income tax, federal
mm-hmm.
business tax. Those are going into Ottawa. Ottawa then distributes the equalization payments. So it would be a lot to get every Albertan, every business to all of a sudden stop paying their federal taxes. We understand the ramifications that would come with that to us.
So we really don't even have a mechanism to do it.
No.
If we said, God damn it, no more of these equalization payments,
Right.
we can't.
It's not that, we're part of Confederation and we're part of the Constitution of Canada. These are very strongly entrenched for good reason. But I think we have to look at how we got here. Let's not look at addressing the consequences. How did we get here? We have a prime minister who has declared war on the energy sector. We need a prime minister who will be a champion of Canada's energy sector, fight for those national projects and ensure that Northern Gateway, Energy East, Trans Mountain are built. And then we don't have these issues. That is the solution to this, not picking a fight with Quebec or Ontario or BC. We want to be part of United Canada. I agree. And I'm an Albertan. I am angry, just like everybody else right now. And we cannot afford another mandate of the Prime Minister Trudeau. And we just, the failure that he has had on keeping Canada together, he is pitting one region and one province against the other. Canadians want a Prime Minister who looks at Canada first, not what's going on around the world first. We need a Prime Minister who's going to stand up for Canada.
No, that's racist, John.
I know I'm being a racist and a xenophobe.
Yes.
And all of these kinds of things.
Xenophobe. I actually had to Google that one.
Yeah.
Xenophobe, just scared of anything different.
Right.
Is what xenophobe is.
Right.
So what is the deal with that bloodline, that royal bloodline of Trudeau's? I'm old enough to remember my family losing everything in the early 80s. I literally watched all of my belongings getting auctioned off on our driveway.
Wow.
That was Trudeau Part 1.
Yeah.
And it seems like JT, as I call him, is here to finish the job.
Yeah.
And now, I don't want to go into hyperbole, but honestly, it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he's so bound and determined that man-made global warming is the be-all, end-all issue, that he is willing to take the knees out of the, to completely destroy the Alberta energy sector to achieve his global warming targets.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like to me. What does it look like to you?
Yeah, I would agree. There's been a disdain for Alberta and Western Canada since his father, the National Energy Program. As you've talked about a personal story, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of stories like that from the early '80s. I recall, I grew up in Saskatchewan at that time. Even there, people were walking away from their homes and dropping their keys off at the bank, saying, "Can't do it." Can you imagine living with 22% interest rates on your mortgage? As a realtor, I can't imagine.
That'd be the end.
It would be the end. And to see that now with Trudeau 2.0 is very frustrating. And but I think I know the tide is changing. When we came out in opposition to the carbon tax when he first tabled it, and even when Premier Notley first tabled the carbon tax, we knew this is nothing more than a revenue tax grab for government. It does not address climate change. If that is truly your goal, there are other ways we can do that. And now we're seeing the vast majority of Canadians understand that a carbon tax isn't going to do anything to address climate change. All it is raise revenue for government, and they are opposed to it. And we will repeal the carbon tax as our first.
That's because you're a science denier.
And that's right. We can't be intimidated by. I'm in the House of Commons. Anytime we talk about these things. That is the first thing the Liberals or NDP will say. Oh, you Conservatives, you're climate change deniers. It's such an easy argument for them to go to, rather than them try to defend.
It's not an argument. It's name calling.
It's name calling, right?
That's all it is.
It's bullying, and unfortunately, they don't know us very well, especially as Albertans. We're not going to take it.
No. It's not all at the feet of Prime Minister Trudeau. There's international influences going on. How has the Trump presidency and other global politics affected the Alberta economy?
Yeah, there's no question. We certainly feel the ramifications and the ripple effect of what happens around the world. We're a global trading partner. That's going to happen. I think President Trump has had a profound impact on not only Alberta's economy, but certainly Canada's economy. When he made his massive tax changes in the United States has made us uncompetitive, especially when you add a carbon tax on top of that. He's lowered his corporate taxes. We have seen $86 billion in capital investment leave Canada and go to other jurisdictions, mainly the United States. President Trump is eating our lunch. And unfortunately, we have a prime minister who's just watching him do it. not only watching him do it, but allowing him to take investment, take jobs, and take economic opportunity.
A friend of mine once said Trudeau versus Trump is like Bambi versus Godzilla, and it doesn't seem far off.
It doesn't. Look at the NAFTA negotiations on how that ended up. The Liberals and the Prime Minister touting this as a great success because we didn't lose it. We kept everything. We didn't lose anything. Well, that's not how a negotiation is supposed to go. You are supposed to have benefits on both sides. But you capitulated on agriculture, you capitulated on prescription drugs, you capitulated on our trade sovereignty. Plus, there's still very crippling steel and aluminum tariffs on and no softwood lumber agreement. All of these things are hurting Canadian economy. So, we signed a very bad deal. Absolutely, it's we did not want to have no deal. Especially for agriculture in this riding, having a free trade agreement with the United States and Mexico is critical. But to tout this as a victory is very short-sighted and being very misleading for Canadians.
To switch gears for a second, this show has a lot of viewers in the veteran community. I'm a combat veteran myself.
Okay.
And one of the topics that keeps coming up is lifetime pensions. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, when that was gutted and removed, another personal story. Tommy Anderson was on my tour in 94, got both of his legs blown off the first couple weeks. So he's on the old system. But every year he has to prove that his legs didn't grow back.
Yeah.
That's an actual truth.
For sure.
I wrote the minister. I wrote Seamus O'Regan. And he came back to me and said, no, that's not true. I said, well, here's Tommy's number. Mm-hmm. Here's his number. Call him. Yeah. Because every year he posts it on Facebook. Here's my doctor's note again. Since 1994, every year, got to prove my legs didn't grow back. Yeah. Now, is that a misconception?
No.
Are you familiar with this?
Yeah.
Why has nobody stood up to say this is disgusting?
Yeah.
And it has to stop? It seems like a pretty easy fix.
It absolutely is, and it's a travesty that this happens. And we've just gone through this with another case. Fawcett, I believe her name is. It came up in House of Commons a question period the last couple of days.
I thought that her injuries weren't in service, though.
She was on duty when it happened.
She was on duty
from what my understanding. I don't want to. People can correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know the details of her.
Yeah. But similar. Like she's had to prove that her leg didn't grow back every single year, and she wants funding for a prosthetic leg, and the military and the federal government have refused that. And I would argue that probably no federal government in the last 20 years has done a good job with this. I know when we were in government, we put through the new Veterans Charter, and I toured around the riding to all my legions and spoke about it. And there were still a lot of issues that came up. Nothing has been perfect.
Why did everybody agree to get rid of the lifetime pension in 2006? Everybody did. Yeah. Conservatives, Liberals, NDP, which is the last people I would thought would do that. And even the Legion was all saying, yep, scrap the lifetime pension. What was the rationale there? That, to me personally, horrific. That's a horrific thing to do.
Yeah.
You lose your legs, to me, that's a free pass.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
You're covered till you're dead.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Why was that not done? Why was it scrapped in 2006?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wasn't there in 2006. I'm not sure the history, to be honest. I know as I said, with the new Veterans Charter, we were trying to address some of those things with the lump sum payment or lifetime payment. Some of those, we certainly had feedback that the lump sum payment was not working for many veterans. But I think we have to understand the trauma that our men and women in uniform have gone through, and I just don't think any government has done a great job of that. Now, I'm very proud of the team that we have with Aaron O'Toole and Leon Alislev and people who are in our Conservative caucus who were veterans who are working very hard on this to try and right some of those wrongs that we've had in the past.
Well, I will tell you that even under the Liberal government, who are no fans of the military,
right,
things have got better. It really has.
Good.
There's lots of the challenge is accessing it. Mm-hmm. So what people don't seem to realize is we have all these political grandstanding of, look at all these programs that we have for them. Yeah, good luck accessing them.
Right.
How it is right now is that for a veteran to actually access any of these programs, it is so convoluted and so difficult. Even calling the helpline in the middle of the night for the suicide hotline, it's got 8 steps before you can actually get somebody on the phone.
Wow.
You don't have that kind of time.
No.
So it says, oh, we have this program. Okay, lip service, you have it. Try accessing it. I don't know a single veteran that has had an easy go to and been able to do it without an advocate.
Right.
And that's where the Legion comes in. The services that I've accessed personally, no way in hell I'd have been able to access them without an advocate from the Royal Canadian Legion. Because you actually need an advocate. It's like having your own lawyer just to access the services. And most people don't even know that that advocacy is available at the Legion.
Right.
First, are you aware that it's that difficult to access the services that are offered? Second, is there any solutions?
Yeah, I'm definitely aware. I've had many conversations with the Legions in the riding. There has to be a solution. I think a lot of the times bureaucrats kind of get in the way of these things. They every service is a pillar within it's siloed. Right? We just need a one window in access to these types of programs. And when you have veterans who are suffering through PSD or financial issues, you can't ask them to fill out 50 pages of paperwork, which I've definitely seen on a CRA issue with Revenue Canada, which this veteran had to get somebody else to help them do it because they were in rough mental shape that they just couldn't bring themselves to do it.
Well, I can tell you, I'm very active in the veterans community. Pardon me. And one of the side effects of PTSD is that you are easily overwhelmed, especially by paperwork.
Exactly.
And bureaucracy.
Sure.
So the one thing that we need to do to access, we do not have the ability to do. Can't do it without an advocate. And it is a crying shame.
Yeah, and you make a good point, Mark. Is if somebody can resolve this, I don't care who is in government. I will applaud you if we can find a solution that will work. This has to be a nonpartisan, all-party focus for us. But again, it comes down to no one really understanding, and we can't have a Veterans Affairs minister who says, I understand what it's like to transition from military service because I left broadcasting into politics. Like, come on, that is such a demeaning statement to make. And then veterans like yourself are like, come on, you got to be kidding me here. Like, you truly don't understand what we're going through. And I think that's a big problem is you have to have that, not only that advocate that's helping you here on the ground, but that advocate in government who understands what you've gone through.
No, it's true. And although we never expect anybody to fully understand, we do expect them to listen.
For sure.
And to try.
Yeah.
Okay, switching into Foothills region. And sort of a fastball question for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are your
I'm
feet
ready.
planted? All right. Name a local unsung hero.
An unsung hero. Yeah, those are good because I like those ones that because there's lots of people that get some great attention. I would say Tammy Beach in High River is a great person as unsung hero. I don't know anybody who volunteers more often than Tammy in High River. She's incredible. Any event you go to, she's
Shout out to Tammy Beach. So what does she? What sort of volunteer stuff does she do?
Oh, she was just at the Santa Claus parade. She works in the Foothills School Division. So she does a lot of their Christmas concerts and those types of things. High River Rodeo. Oh my gosh, I could just name every event in High River and she would be there. Hospital Foundation, fundraiser, everything.
Well, maybe it's her that's going to have her door knocked on next. Hey, do you want John's job?
That's possible. It's certainly
You're
possible.
more active than he is. Now for my favorite part of the show.
Okay.
And it was fun asking Carrie Fisher this.
Okay.
Another fastball. Have you ever been a victim of fake news?
No, I've been misquoted for sure, but I don't think I've ever been a victim of fake news.
Was the misquote an honest mistake?
Yeah.
Or do you think it was actually twisted?
No, I don't think it was twisted. I have a lot of faith in my local media here. I've worked with them for 20 some years, so
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident that they wouldn't try and mess with me in any way on purpose. But
What
no,
about media bias against conservatives? Have you seen that?
Absolutely. That is probably the most frustrating thing I've experienced because I always heard about that, right? But I was really focused here locally, and I know the respect and the integrity that our local media here has, whether that's the Western Wheel, High River Times, the local radio stations. They treat things, they're not looking for dirt. They want to just report the story, and usually they want to look at it as a positive. But now that I'm at a federal level and I see the mainstream media, it is extremely frustrating.
Do you have a specific example of perhaps talking points that are anti-conservative? As an example, The CEOs of Google and Facebook have been hauled into courts and congresses all over the world. If you Google conservatives, the definition is people that are afraid of everything. It's
Yeah.
the politics of fear you keep hearing our prime minister saying. Are there? Does the media repeat any of those talking points to reinforce them?
I wouldn't say they would go that far. I just think if you kind of look at the headlines on some of those issues, immigration is one. I saw it the other day where Prime Minister calls out conservatives for fear mongering on immigration.
Are you scared of immigrants, John?
Not at all. What we are upset about is
Do we need a
conservatives.
wall?
We definitely don't need a wall, but we do need somebody to actually protect our borders from illegal migrants crossing into Canada. And if you talk to new Canadians or people in my riding who have immigrated, they are frustrated by this.
Yeah.
They worked very hard, went through the right process, the
It's a
lawful
slap in the
process.
face to every
Exactly.
legal immigrant.
Right, but they worked hard to get here. Or people that I'm working with in our office who are trying to bring family over or trying to get their permanent residency status. And they're coming into the office saying, well, should I just go to the States and walk across the border at Rawson Road in Quebec and then I won't have a problem? As a member of parliament, I'm not going to give them that advice, but that's the situation. They're very frustrated.
Well, silence is acquiescence. And if we're just standing by and allowing people to cross the border willy-nilly, we're encouraging that. And then we have absolutely zero control over who it is. And there's this Pollyanna ideology of, well, if you're coming across the border and you're ducking under the fence, we can just automatically trust that you're a good person and you are going to be a benefit to Canada. I do not understand the logic there.
Well, not only that, it doesn't put faith in our immigration system, which we've had an outstanding immigration system. And let's be clear, Canada needs immigration. We have, that's been our secret to our growth. We need those people to fill important labor roles that we need people. So it's not that we're anti-immigration. That is absolutely not the case. Even under Harper, we had 250, 300,000 new immigrants every single year, and we were very proud of our record when it came to immigration. However, you cannot have an illegal system that you are just idly letting it happen. As you said, it's not fair to those who are trying to do it the right way, follow the law, and come in the right way. But also, we have to look at the cost of it. And the parliamentary budget officer and the auditor general came out. This is going to cost us more than $1 billion over the next few years as a result of just paying for the illegal immigration coming across. Every single one costs about $45,000 a year. That's more than a minimum wage Canadian is making an entire calendar year. It's not right and it's not fair.
Final question, John, before we wrap up. Not so long ago, the ethics commissioner said, guilty, guilty,
Many times. Yeah.
guilty,
Yeah.
zero consequences.
Yeah.
So what's the point of guilty if there's zero consequences? And what are we doing about that on the Conservative side? Are we trying to hold his feet? Are we trying to implement some consequences? How can you be guilty, the first prime minister in history
Yeah.
to be guilty? Zero consequences. We're not doing anything about it. Are we doing something about it? Are we trying to hold his feet to the fire? What's the consequences for our prime minister?
Well, the ultimate accountability is come election time, and he should lose. I couldn't agree with you more. I would be hard-pressed to think back to any time in Canadian history where you would have 4 cabinet ministers found guilty of ethics violation and another one now under investigation, including, as you said, the prime minister. It's unfathomable that, and again, maybe you look at some of that media bias, but
Well, why not charges from the RCMP like it would happen to anybody else?
Right. There is parliamentary privilege involved in that, which is an age-old issue, but I agree. There should be some very strong consequences. The prime minister of all people is the one that Canadians hold above and beyond reproach, or should hold above and beyond reproach. And when he breaks the law, breaks ethics law, knowingly doing so,
And never apologized.
never apologize, and just says, I appreciate the work of the ethics commissioner, and we will we'll work with them in any way that they want. That's not good enough. That's not good enough for Canadians. You should be, if anybody should be following the letter of the law, it should be the prime minister. And for him to get a $200 fine and then just move on, I don't think is right. I don't know what the answer should be.
Well, that's reeking of above the law.
I couldn't agree more. It is absolutely saying I'm, do as I say, not as I do. And that is not right. Maybe he shouldn't be allowed to run again if you violate.
Isn't our
ethics law.
finance minister under investigation as well for all kinds of conflict of interest positions? Like, isn't he kind of the worst guy you could have possibly picked for that spot?
Absolutely. The finance minister has been guilty, not only investigated, but guilty. The fisheries minister, and now the innovation minister is under investigation with the shady land deal that he could have potentially profited from in Brampton. So, as I said, it's
Are they all untouchable? Are they all going to get away with it?
they're all going to get away with it unless, and again, the ultimate accountability is come at election time.
That's not enough.
It's not enough because there's no guarantee that they'll lose. Right?
That's not enough. That's not one justice. That's not one legal system for everybody.
No.
If you commit a crime, you do the time. And I have not heard any whispers in question period or anywhere else where people are really stomping their feet about this and saying, you have to be held accountable, you have to pay the price. You have to be at least charged and properly investigated by the RCMP. Why? Why is there not that push to go that extra step?
Well, they've never broken, or they haven't broken like a criminal code law, but what they have done is broken the ethics rules around parliamentarians. So it's not that they've broken something that the RCMP could charge them with. The innovation minister, that is a very distinct possibility. He is under investigation by the RCMP. So if he is charged criminally, then that will very likely be the end of his career, and it should be the end of his career.
No, absolutely. Mr. Barlow, I am so pleased that you made the time to be here. It's really enjoyed your time. Thank you so much for being accessible and transparent and being on the Meincke Show podcast.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
I hope we can do it again.
I hope so.
All right, 100%. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Mark.